Okay, I think we're live,
Hello.
David.
Hi,
Hello.
everybody. Hi, Swati. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Yeah, really nice to see you here. So I'm looking forward to talking, mainly because I think we're talking about me, and I have definitely don't have any ego death yet. I'm still quite like talking about me. But yeah, I'm doing well. I just got to America, so I'm here for a couple of weeks on vacation, seeing my wife's family. It's beautiful to see. My allergies are terrible, but yeah, it's nice to be here. Where are you in the world today?
I am in Mexico City, so I actually moved here a couple of months ago, and I'm still just right in the heart of the city, hanging out.
Amazing, amazing. So we're here to talk about navigating psychedelics, and yeah, my role as a student in it. So it's a really cool story, and yeah, it is life changing because it's about my life, and it's changed dramatically over the last few years. So I'm really, yeah, I love talking about change and transformation and kind of bold decisions. And then the Navigating Psychedelics course starts next week. Two cohorts, Wednesday the 8th, Thursday the 9th. I'm one of the teachers there, amongst a wonderful team of 9 of us who are teaching over those 9 weeks. So really looking forward to being a teacher as well as being a student back in the day.
I think that's so cool. And before we dive into that story, I would love to kind of back it up a little bit and get into your own personal journey, because I know you have this very robust background in the mental health space. So I'd love to kind of start from there a little bit and just understand how you kind of like navigated your roles as a social worker and how that eventually led you to psychedelics.
Yeah, it's a long story, and I won't go into my electrocution story at the age of 21, but in a sense, what that did, that turned me away from money and towards helping people. But it took me really another 10 years after I got electrocuted to figure out that I also needed to make money through helping people. and so that's when I was, around in my early 30s, that I had a choice to make around what should I do. Like, I'd done lots of, youth work, counseling work, community development work, a bit of addiction work and homelessness work. But I hadn't really figured out a career path and wanting to get married and have kids. And thank God, it happened. I'm now married with 2 kids. But I didn't know what to do. So I was thinking I could be a social worker, a counselor. I thought about being a farmer or permaculturist, a youth worker. And in the end, I sought people's advice, and the social work degree really gave me the most leeway to be flexible and to kind of take multiple paths in the future. And so it's proved. So becoming a social worker enabled me to, I started working in hospitals in New York and New Jersey, addiction departments, mental health departments. And then I started to work as a director of an outpatient addiction clinic in New Jersey. So at that point, I had 10 team members and about 130 um, clients that we would work with, intensive outpatient treatment and outpatient levels of care. And I was loving it. It was kind of my dream job, helping people and getting paid good money. Um, but psychedelics kind of came into the picture. I've been using psychedelics really for quite a long time in my life, and cannabis, and had kept that private. But as MAPS was making such wonderful progress over the last 5 years, lots of money was coming into the industry, a lot more attention. It became harder and harder to kind of keep my beliefs about psychedelics as a viable treatment method private and secret. And I had those conversations with people saying, well, we could bring ketamine in here and work with some of our clients once they've stabilized, but it just wasn't viable from the corporate level. And so I started to feel like I can't really be here anymore, even though this is my dream job. And so it became, yeah, like a conflict inside of me. Um, and so I made the decision that okay, I'm going to start a new career path, mental health, addiction, and psychedelics together. And that will hopefully allow me to be a bit more honest and authentic. So the first thing I did was, yeah, check out different training courses. Um, and, I did a few 1 hour courses here and there, did some webinars, started reading tons of articles, did some online summits, and those were wonderful. Um, but I needed something that's just a bit more deep and meaningful and real, kind of hands-on, practical, and just being part of a community of other learners, and being able to ask questions without worrying about losing my license or uh, you know getting into
That's a
trouble.
big
So
one.
yeah, yeah. So I did some research, and yeah, Navigating Psychedelics was the course that seemed the best to me. I wasn't ready for a 12-month course yet, because I needed to just figure out, like, is this viable? Like, is there a career option
Mm.
here? You know, because I've got a wife and two kids, and so I'm not sure I want to invest that much money until I'm sure. So Navigating Psychedelics was, really like a good middle ground just to digest it. Um, and yeah, 3 years ago, I started Navigating Psychedelics as a student with Kyle and with Joe and weekly teachers.
And so
And
you met the
literally
two
on
of
week
them through
one,
the
on the
course?
first day of the 9-week course, I resigned my job. I handed in my notice that day. Um, it was a gamble, but I just knew I've got to do this, and giving myself a few months to find a new job really kind of put the fire under me to say I have to do this. um, yeah, so that's kind of how it started. So I joined the 9-week course, met amazing people from all over the world doing completely different things. Yes, there were therapists and healers. There's also a film director that made a couple of psychedelic themed movies, and just being able to talk about psychedelics in a really mature way, in a relaxed way, for 9 weeks, and to have amazing teachers just to throw questions at, and to just see different ways that people were using psychedelics was totally mind-blowing to me. It wasn't just clinical trials that people were using psychedelics. It was real, like, kind of life-saving work, like underground work, retreat work, um, and harm reduction work. And it was just totally validating that this is what I needed to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And so, during that time, like when you were, I guess, navigating psychedelics, quite literally, and you joined the course and you were trying to see if this was a good fit for you, were there any specific, maybe topics, lectures, researchers that really resonated with you that were just so standout and almost completely kind of changed that perspective for you?
Yeah, there was Mitch Gomez was one of the teachers from Dance Safe. Um, and having worked in the addiction field for so long, I really connected with his work, because it's kind of addiction informed, but focusing on harm reduction, particularly around festival safety and drug testing. Um, and that intersection around educating people around risks, yes, but also navigating the challenges around drug policy and drug enforcement and police, and security staff, and how to find ways of disseminating information and providing harm reduction services legally, um, that people are going to use and relate to. It's almost like changing the language of it. So it's translating public education and health campaigns into, like, well, what do drug users care about? What do people that use psychedelics care about? What's in their minds, when they're thinking about what drugs they're going to use, or how they're going to use them, when they're going to use them, who they're going to be with, how they're going to combine it, whether they're going to test that. So for me, that was just beautiful to see how we can kind of save lives and just be really honest. And from a cognitive liberty perspective, yeah, that really inspired me. That this is, again, is just super duper important work. Like, we're saving lives, and we are not relying on governments to tell, kind of to set the agenda or say, what is needed. Because we're seeing, look, there's 100,000 people dying a year of fentanyl overdoses, and the government's really not done anything. So what do we do as the community to fill that gap of leadership? And so it was kind of really inspiring to see him as a leader saying, this is something that we're doing.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so wonderful. And so, after the course had ended for you and you were in this process of kind of coming on to PT's team, how did that process go for you? What were you kind of hoping from the experience, and what really drew you into PT specifically?
Yeah. I had a little folder with me. This was before I started using Google Docs. When I joined Psychedelics Today, that's when I started to use like Google Docs and or Google Calendar. Prior to that, I was using Outlook. So I had this folder with with pieces of paper in it. And for every person that I met in the psychedelic industry, I'd get a new piece of paper and start writing notes about my phone call with them or my emails with them or the advice they would give. And so I probably spoke to maybe 70 different people. This was, 3 years ago. So it was easier to access CEOs and founders back then. But yeah, I started to, in a sense, just have any job. I would have taken kind of anything that enabled me to work with psychedelics. So I had quite a lot of interviews with Compass Pathways. I think 4 interviews, and in the end, I spoke to my wife about it, and I just couldn't go through with it, even though the pay was amazing, great health benefits, and I'd have been having trips to England working, so I could have seen my family there. It just didn't feel right to me. Um, and I had other jobs that were offered, and there was no pay. It was just like offered equity because it was a startup and it was a heart focused role, so I couldn't do those either. Having a mortgage and 2 kids, um, and then I'd had quite a few conversations with Joe and Kyle, and the company back then was much smaller than it is now, and we hadn't done our vital course, which is 12 months long, so we were still super startup bootstrap. And what I did with Joe and Kyle, I actually produced a slide deck and a presentation about why I should join the company.
That's
I'll
amazing.
try and find it actually. That would be quite funny. Yeah, so I said, and I said, had a meeting with them. I was like, look, guys, I've got a really good idea about how I can help you, just to free you guys up, and different kind of roles I can have, quite diverse, hybrid skills. Um, and yeah, I pitched it to them, and they thought about it, and eventually, yeah, they said, okay, we're willing to give this a try. Let's do it. And I was really drawn towards PT, I think because I just trust Joe and Kyle. Like I like them as human beings, and I respect them. Then the company is not kind of corporate sellout. It's really heart focused, and it's not afraid to speak the truth. Um, and it's kind of fun to work in as well. And it's also been great that I was able to get really involved in the media side of things with podcasts and webinars and teaching classes. Being a study group instructor in Vital has been amazing. Teaching and navigating psychedelics is awesome. Yeah, and just being a bit of a thinker around, okay, where's the field of psychedelic education going? Where's it going to be in 5 years' time? And how do we design our courses now so that they're kind of the best position now to be able to hit the needs of whatever regulations there are or accreditation programs there are, in 5 years' time. So I really like that kind of almost futurism of designing psychedelic education programs.
And that's definitely, I think, what PT is doing, right? Especially with Vital. But
Hmm.
Navigating Psychedelics has been around for so long. Like I know that you had mentioned it's been like 7 or 8 years since the course has been established. So can you talk a little bit about its history for us?
Yeah, so Joe and Carl started off with podcasts 8 years ago. Um, not for a money making venture, just because they realized it wasn't there. Um, there really weren't many psychedelic podcasts, if any, back then. I think just a few. Um, and they love talking about it, particularly transpersonal, holotropic breathwork, the work of Stan Groff. And so they started to talk about that, bringing guests on. And they had so many questions from listeners, they ran out of time to answer those questions. So they said, you know what, let's just have a really basic course where everyone can come and ask us those questions. We'll record some content so you've got the basics there, and then we'll be able to provide more deep education to our community. So it started off as a 4-week course. So navigating psychedelics for 4 weeks, great. Got some videos. Here's some slides. We're going to record that. Go watch that stuff, and then we'll have 4 weeks of Q&A, and we'll guide you through some of the more nuanced principles of the work. So harm reduction and integration. And then after a while, they realized obviously 4 weeks isn't enough. Students were completing that and thinking, I want more. So they expanded it to 8 weeks a few years ago, and that's when I took the course. It was an 8 week long course, and just going more deeply into harm reduction and integration, yes, but also looking more at the history of psychedelics, indigenous traditions, and the research from the 50s, understanding challenging experiences, so space holding and setting, going into that more. And then they added a week 9. So week 9 is my favorite week. It's beautiful, and we do this in Vital, our 12-month course, where the final few weeks there, students present back to each other. This is my final project. This is my integration project. The different parts of my life that right now I'm integrating, that are kind of fluid, that are plastic, that I am opening up to my own curiosity to develop these. So it might be I'm combining my practices as a body worker, massage therapist, with being a space holder or a coach. Or it might be I'm combining my interests in kind of Jungian psychology with, yeah, doing some ketamine work. And this is how I'm combining those fields. Or it might be this is how I'm, thinking about being, a mom of 3 kids and practicing more self-care or doing microdosing myself. So these were some of the final projects that people did. Some people, yeah, like I said, were literally producing films, like that have been at film shows and premieres. Others have developed ketamine clinics in Canada. He's now the CEO of, an actually good ketamine clinic, doing really amazing work in Canada. Yeah, a lot of healers, a lot of body workers, naturopaths, herbalists that were part of the course, yoga instructors, meditation teachers, and then yeah, lots of therapists, a couple of doctors and nurses, and they're all doing different things. So just meeting them for me, as great as Joe and Carl and the other teachers were, I think it was just meeting so many amazing students from all over the world, and each one was doing something completely different. And like I said before, it's just liberating in a sense once you've got the shackles taken off to go, oh, it doesn't have to be very similar to what I was doing before. It could be very different to what I was doing before. And that's up to me to figure out what to do.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like that concept of psychedelic practice extends so much farther beyond just the therapeutic lens. And so I'm glad that you kind of outlined that a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand that you don't have to be like a licensed clinician to be able to take Navigating Psychedelics or Vital. And I think that's a really unique piece to psychedelics today and all of the education that we have here in general.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so, what really excites you, David, about this upcoming cohort? Because I know that's kicking off next week, and you're going to be teaching the second week?
Yeah, I'm week 2. So it's 9 weeks long, and then there's 2 cohorts. So the Wednesday cohort is being led by Jasmine Verdi. So Jasmine will be there for all 9 weeks. And that's, yeah, starting next Wednesday, the 8th at 12 o'clock Eastern. The Thursday cohort starting Thursday the 9th, and that's at 8 o'clock Eastern. And Diego Pinzon is teaching all 9 weeks of that course. So 2 amazing, amazing people that I really respect their work, their beliefs, and their kind of multidisciplinary knowledge as well. And then weeks 2 through 8, they're going to be joined by new teachers. And I'm coming in week 2 to Diego and Jasmine's cohort, and I'll be teaching about self-awareness and inner work. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about why that's something that I'm finding just really interesting to teach about. But I'll just talk a bit about, if that's all right, Swati, about who the
Of
other
course,
6 teachers are coming in the middle. So these are people
please.
that we really respect, and are kind of the best of the best in what they do. So in week 3, Kyle will be talking about the history of psychedelics. So it's both indigenous traditions and the history of psychedelic research and underground use since Prohibition in the West. In week 4, Courtney Barnes is going to be talking about legal and political considerations for using psychedelics. and working with psychedelics. So that's super important in a sense from a harm reduction perspective, but just from an informed decision-making perspective, risk management perspective. So really important we include that in our kind of fundamental knowledge. And in week 5, Emma Knighton's going to be teaching about ethical frameworks and applications. So things like boundaries, things like touch, and informed consent. So again, essential learning. And then Juliana Mulligan is coming into week 6, and she'll be talking about harm reduction and preparation. And normally she'll talk about addiction work as well, and her experiences working with and in the ibogaine field. And then Ido's coming in week 7. So Ido Cohen's an amazing psychologist from California, specialist in kind of Jungian depth psychology. And he's talking about integration, the practice of it, and how to just really work with somebody else to identify what is it that I am actually integrating, and how do I build this into my life as a permanent kind of feature of living, not just as this one little form I complete or this short-term thing I do for a week after I trip, but how can my life be a fluid invitation of integration, being kind of embedded within how I think and how I feel, and my relationship with my body and with other people as well can be part of that. Week 8 is Victor Cabral. So he is going to be talking about intersectional awareness and practice. So he just was part of the production team for a really fantastic film called We Are the Medicine. And so, yeah, that it's speaking around our identities, our intersectional awarenesses, and the cultures, the societies that we live in, the kind of policies and regulations that, in a sense, frame our relationships with each other and with ourselves. And then week 9, as I said, is the final project. So that's where we get to present, this is who I am and who I am becoming. And so Jasmine and Diego are going to go solo on those 2 week 9s. So yeah, tons there. And maybe just to say as well, for folks that are thinking about this, there are 2 options of navigating psychedelics. There is this live option, but there's also just a pre-recorded option where, sorry, that's my wife's iPad ringing. That's funny. So yeah, there's this live version for 9 weeks, or there's the pre-recorded version. If you do the live version, you get the pre-recorded version included, so it's kind of part of the live course. So the pre-recorded version is 20 something hours of interviews, masterclass conversations with experts in the field, and that is in the on-demand version. The pre-recorded version, you take your time to watch that, no rush. And same with the live version, you've got that for life. Take your time watching it. I would just say that the live version has so much more value if you're feeling like you really want to ask questions, belong to community, and maybe move a little bit more quickly, like say in the next 12 months. If you're thinking, you know what, I'm not quite ready to do this in the next 12 months, maybe I need a couple of years. Okay, so maybe start off with the on-demand version. But the live version for me was, that's where the magic happens, because you're just talking to so many people, and you also stay part of that community forever. So you become part of our online circle platform, and your cohort of students, you're there in a little circle pod, talking, sharing resources. After the 9 weeks finish, you just keep going. You're all there, and you can always help out. So why am I so interested in self-awareness and inner work? And I'm kind of just moving into this, to be honest, Swati. Like after I got electrocuted 24 years ago, I literally the next day became Buddhist, became vegan, shaved my hair off, became a hippie, no longer wanted to be a stockbroker. And that was the beginning of inner work and self-awareness, because I became aware that I was not who I thought I was or pretended to be, and I didn't have a clue who I actually was. And so I started from kind of the ground and worked my way up. And it's 24 years later. Yeah, I'm proud of who I am and how far I've come. but I have a lot of work to do. I really do.
I think we
My
all do,
shadow.
David.
Yeah, I'm not the
It's
only
a
one.
never-ending journey.
I'm not a special flower. That I'm the only one who's got a shadow to heal. Um, but I really believe in this meaningfulness to life, to accept the invitation, to own our shit, and to hold ourselves accountable for how I function in life, how I treat people, how I make decisions, how I handle my emotions, how much love I show myself. Um, and there's so many options around there, and often these are unconscious choices that we make. And I'm fascinated by the potential to have more of these decisions and options move into our conscious kind of awareness, so that we can really look at this. Okay, this is maybe how I can handle this relationship, or this is how I can handle this scenario, or this is a decision I need to make, or this is the pattern I need to change because I keep doing this thing again and again, or this isn't healthy for me. Let's be honest with myself here. And this is never ending. Like every time I eat something, or I drink something, or I open my mouth to talk, or I send somebody an email, or I'm sitting with my kids, or I'm not sitting with my kids because I'm doing work instead of sitting with my kids. This is all moments of self-awareness and inner work, decisions, and destiny really being manifested. So yeah, and I think really this is why we're alive as human beings. It's just become so hard, unfortunately, to remember that, because we're so
Mhm.
distracted, and it's really hard to stay grounded and to remember who we actually are, and to have joy and curiosity and love, and to know it's okay not to be perfect, and we haven't got to pretend to have all the answers.
Definitely. And so if you're taking that concept of self-awareness and inner work and you're applying it in the context of psychedelic practice, how do you feel like that translates over? Where do psychedelics come into play, and how do practitioners actually utilize this within their own practices?
Yeah, yeah, it's a twofold piece: self-awareness and inner work. um, Firstly, it's an essential skill for us to have as practitioners. So if we're going to help somebody else with their psychedelic use, or if we're going to help with the harm reduction, preparation, and integration work before and afterwards, I, I honestly believe the most essential skill to have is some aspect of being grounded in self-awareness, of having an ability to know, what am I feeling right now, emotionally, physically, mentally? What is happening in my life right now that maybe is distracting me, or that is giving me this feeling of being stressed out or angry? Am I really present right now, or am I only half present? Is this person that I'm working with triggering me? Like, are they pushing my buttons? Is this person someone that, what, when I'm working with certain people, it makes me feel really insecure, or it makes me feel really grumpy or irritable? I have to know that. What I do with that, then, yep, that's stage two. But stage one is always self-awareness and honesty and accountability. Without that stage one, there's no stage two. So what am I doing there? Like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? If I'm not willing to do this stage one of really knowing myself, and being aware of my limitations, of my skills, and also my limits, my scope of practice. So as a practitioner, Swati, the big thing that we're always talking about and teaching about is scope of practice. What am I competent to teach about and talk about? What kinds of clients can I work with? What kinds of situations, conditions, diagnoses, experiences that our clients come in with, am I able to deal with competently? Have I had the training for that? Do I truly know what being trauma informed means? Am I able to sit with somebody that has maybe a totally different life experience to me, different religion, different ethnicity and culture, different gender, different sexuality? Do I have the skills to show up for that person and for them to feel safe and to trust that I'm fully there and fully showing unconditional positive regard for them? Can I answer that question myself? So that's kind of the first piece of it. So one, this is about being able to offer ethical practice to our clients. So this is really about ethics. And yeah, the second piece is around kind of walking the walk. And in a sense, it can be self-care. We can think about self-awareness and inner work could be about looking after ourselves. And whether we're going to be doing psychedelic work or not, the ability to tune into ourselves, particularly somatically, to have a deeper, more nuanced relationship with our bodies, with the sensations that we have, with the energy that is there underneath the surface. That's about self-care, to avoid burnout and to, yeah, learn about in a sense, the infinite depth of being human and being alive as a human. So we have curiosity and respect for life. We have compassion for the challenges our clients go through. Yeah, and we have, in a sense, a commitment, I think, to growth, to change, to transformation, and to truth, and being able to kind of search for that wherever it may look. And yeah, that's just really important. I think not to be complacent in this field. Think, okay, great, I'm an expert now. I've done that course. I read that article, or I've had an ayahuasca journey or 100 ayahuasca journeys. Oh no, okay, that, I don't know how helpful that is or isn't. What is helpful, foundational, is stage one. Is that real honesty and accountability, responsibility with ourselves and with all the complexities, contradictions, and mysteries that we are.
Amazing. Definitely. And I don't even think that that's limited to psychedelic practitioners. I mean, I think this is just a very foundational part of being human. I think it's just amazing that in this context, it's so important to understand the component of self-awareness and inner work, because psychedelics have that tendency to kind of amplify that for us and really puts us in tune with ourselves, in our bodies, in our minds, outside of our minds, So that's very cool. And I love that you're integrating this topic into this course. I think it's going to be so great for everybody taking it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it is foundational. It's and I feel like the way that we're just evolving as a society and culture, we are being forced to be more real with ourselves because we live in such a fake society, and we're feeling sick because we are living in a relatively fake, superficial world. And secondly, because there's just so many problems that we're facing all over the world, like really fundamental thematic problems that need pretty radical, revolutionary evolution. If we have to be honest. We have to develop skills of being honest with ourselves. Like, I've got to stop doing this. I need to be more like this, or I need to speak to this person about this thing here, or this isn't feeling right to me anymore. What do I do with that? Let me just sit with that question. What do I do about this? Okay, I'm not sure, but I'm going to keep sitting with it. So, like, we have to be able to have this kind of mature conversation, or else I do not believe we are going to be around for too much longer. And this is a beautiful planet, and we are amazing spiritual beings, but we're also complex, flawed humans that need to be totally, like, not just spiritually bypassing being amazing spiritual beings. We have to be very grounded in our humanness, in our shadows, in our corners of our hidden parts, and have those difficult conversations.
Definitely. It's almost like a deconditioning process, and maybe psychedelics are kind of a catalyst into that and helping us get back in touch with our whole authentic self that we kind of
Yeah.
know that exists within us. So yeah, this is great. And these are amazing conversations that I think you're able to have with students and in the course, in the navigators community, just everywhere. I think it's such a valuable part of this process, especially for practitioners, to further develop their own understanding of this work, because it's not just theory. There's so many components to this.
Yeah, yeah, and a couple of things that also have helped. I'm not sure if you've seen the two workbooks that Joe and Carl produced, but there's,
The trip journal and the
yeah,
integration
one is a
workbook.
trip journal, one's an integration workbook journal.
I think I have them here, actually.
Ah, okay. Ta-da! Oh, and they've got the new covers, volume two, version two.
Yes.
Yes.
Super
Um,
cool. They're great, by the
so
way.
students get those. They get the PDFs of those, and they're really good for working with clients. Yeah, but they're good for working on yourself, for doing your own psychedelic work, but preparatory work and integration work. Um, and that, that's just like, we need to make it more explicit and practical, not just theoretical. So those workbooks, yeah, they've been really helpful for a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's available on Amazon, but you also get it for free as a PDF when you enroll in Navigating Psychedelics.
Yes, for sure. And also just like being able to connect in community over these topics rather than just filling this out by yourself in your room after your experience. I think this is in itself a very healing experience for everybody involved. And so I think that's really what makes Navigating Psychedelics Live so unique. And,
Mm.
I hope that everybody really sees the value in this course and they have a couple of days left to sign up. So that'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Honestly, I've mentioned it before, but coming out of an addiction clinic in New Jersey, where this is kind of private and secret, that this is something I'm interested in. This is something I have personal experience about, and then meeting all these people in a safe place. And often we'll do breakout groups as well. So you can have kind of talks in two, three, four people in a group, and then come back to the main room and work on some activities together. It, it's 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 what we need, isn't it? Like, not being alone, and yeah, having wise people to bounce ideas off. And yeah, yeah, I've loved being part of the Navigating Psychedelics community, and also the Vital community, the 12-month course. That yeah, just amazing people from all over the world, gives me hope in the future.
Amazing. So, is there anything else, David, that you want to let everyone watching know before we head out?
Oh, I've just loved talking. Thank you for listening, everybody. And yeah, thanks, Swati, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the past. Um, yeah, and it's amazing what happened in 3 years since I took Navigating Psychedelics. And it's, I would just impress upon everyone watching it, the next 3 years, incredible things are going to happen. MDMA is going to be hopefully medicalized by August the 11th. You know, Psilocybin will hopefully be medicalized within probably 18 to 24 months. Cannabis has just been moved to Schedule 3 last week. Ketamine is being used all over the country. Retreat centers are opening up all over the world. People are developing just amazing ways of helping folks that use psychedelics, whether you're a coach, therapist, psychologist, nurse, death doula. There are just so many different roles that are coming on board that you can help people. So it's really up to you just to be creative, and to really feel into, with self-awareness, like, what is my calling? What are my fundamental skills here? How do I want to touch people's lives? What kind of company do I want to work for? So it's kind of, we're getting to that time now where we can ask those questions.
Amazing. And just to quickly add on to that, David, if anybody is thinking about this as well, and they aren't necessarily in the field yet, or aren't licensed in XYZ way, but you're just considering this as a potential, this is a great way, I think, for people to get maybe, a little taste of what happens in this space so that they can make that informed decision for themselves in the future.
Yeah, it's a really helpful course for making decisions, particularly around about what is possible, and also what is my scope of practice? What am I competent in? And do I want to be more competent than I am now in certain areas? And if so, yes. So what do I do about that? So navigating psychedelics might not give you the complete, scope of practice to go and, provide ketamine infusion therapy, or to prescribe medications, or even to be a safe space holder, because that really depends on, well, who are you? What other experience do you bring into life? And what are your motivations? What are your values? What other trainings have you done? But yeah, it's a great place just to come in and have that question asked about, like, what am I ready for? And how is the industry kind of opening up? And what are some of the options of working, around the world? Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, David, I know you have to hop soon, so thank you so much for
Oh, I do,
joining
yes.
me. This was so, yes, you do. Thanks for joining me. This was so great. And I hope everybody can head over to psychedeliceducationcenter.com to take a look at our next cohort starting next week. And send David a nice quick email if you need some financial assistance there as well. We do have some limited scholarships available.
Yeah, you can use the email info@psychedelicstoday.com. So any questions you've got about the course, we do have space right now in both the Wednesday and Thursday cohort starting next week. So feel free to just throw a question our way.
Amazing. All right, David, take care. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. God bless, Swati. Bye.
Bye bye.